This is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living.
Hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you joined me today. I'm Jeff Byrd of Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. And we are in the midst of a really exciting series that I'm learning personally so much from. This is on cultivating the seed of your idea. And as we've dug into this, literally because we're cultivating, so as we're digging into this, I'm learning so many parallels between growing a seed, growing a plant, growing a garden, and the personal development and growth that needs to happen in our lives. And today, the topic that we're going to look at is patience and perseverance. Because let me tell you, if I had it my way, my garden would already look like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It would just be the most beautiful, breathtaking thing in the world, as is beautiful plants, and there's some beautiful things growing. But it never seems to be quite as much as I want and as quickly as I want. You know, you plant those seeds, you plant them, it takes a little while for them to come up and bloom. If I had my way, they'd be blooming that afternoon after I planted them, right? So it takes some patience and some perseverance. And one of our gardening stories is when I met my wife. She lived up near Charlottesville here in Virginia. And she had a beautiful garden because she's a fantastic gardener. And one of the things we loved the most were these big, huge butterfly bushes. And she had several different varieties. She had Black Knights. She had Miss Molly's. Miss Molly is this beautiful pinkish fuchsia kind of bloom. And it was her bushes. They were just huge. I mean, they were in the ground outside the kitchen window, and they grew all the way up. And there were steps leading up to the kitchen, and they had actually grown up into the windows. We could watch the butterflies right outside the kitchen window, and hummingbirds and various other things that came to feed on those. It was really a joy. So when we got married and she moved down here to Norfolk, she took a cutting off of that bush. And so we thought, wow, this bush has grown so big and so huge in just a couple of years up there near Charlottesville. Boy, it's just going to do great. Boy, it's just going to be magnificent. This will be the centerpiece of our garden. And so we planted it, and it grew a little bit the first year. And she said, yeah, boy, next year, just can't wait to see what it does. Just give it another year. And the next year, it grew a little bit and was about the same size. And she said, well, just wait till next year. Well, this is that following year. And it's still pretty small. And we're pruning it, and we're feeding it, and we're hoping. And I had to laugh because just the other week we were out there looking at it. And she said, well, next year. And I said, well, that's what you've been saying for the past couple of years. And she said, by the time this gardening thing is done, you're going to have learned patience. And I thought, well, that's good because I've been needing that for a long time. But, you know, the patience and the perseverance, the garden and the plants, let me tell you, they do not grow on my timetable. If I had my way, so many things would be a lot further down the road and look a whole lot bigger and more robust and more full, different parts of life, different parts of the garden. So there's definitely learning to adjust and appreciate the plants for what they are and for where they are, while I'm still hoping for that vision of what I see for them. So there's patience and there's perseverance needed, you know, because I don't want to just give up on the garden, give up on the plant, because they're growing and they're beautiful in their own right, just like they are. And it's just like with people, you know, if you try to force them too far, too fast, it's just like a plant, you know, you can end up getting discouraged. You can frustrate the daylights out of them, that's for sure. And any of us that have had that experience can definitely testify to that. So there's and you know, we have to be patient with ourselves, right? How many people, I would love to know, I wish we were in a live audience and I could ask for a show of hands, but how many of you listening to this have struggled with being patient with yourself? You just wish you were further down the road. You wish you had grown more. You wish you had learned more, done more. And it can be very difficult to be patient with ourselves sometimes in that garden of our own life. And we need to learn this patience and this perseverance. Things aren't always as quick as we think they're going to be. How many have had a vision, maybe for a business or a certain type of life, and it's just been met with heartache and heartbreak, and it's been hard to keep moving on, but you knew you had to because that was the only direction forward. But it was a lot slower than you anticipated. But yet, in the midst of that, you learned some valuable lessons. You became something more than what you envision. You envision this great life, this great world, or a great garden, and then you had some difficulties. But what you learned out of those difficulties, what you became, was a person of greater perseverance, greater patience, greater confidence, greater faith, maybe. You became more on the inside than what you were on the outside, or what you had even hoped for. And becoming that on the inside gave you an ability to make a difference in a way you never had been able to make before. So that's kind of the purpose of learning this patience and this perseverance. But back to the gardening, my wife likes to say, she tells me this sometimes, heartbreak is a part of gardening. We might get a plant or a flower, and we do everything we can for it. We try to find the right soil. We try to kill the pests. We try to, feed it right. And some plants just don't make it. And sometimes you never know why. Sometimes your best efforts with a child, a friend, family member, it just doesn't have the impact that you want it to. They just don't seem to get it. They just don't seem to do well. And we can easily feel bad about that. Just because the plant doesn't do well does not necessarily mean I'm a bad gardener. Some plants just, you do your best and they just don't make it. And we have to keep persevering, keep moving forward ourselves. We can't let those voices that say, "Oh, you're not enough. You're not good enough." We can't let those things sink in. We have to keep persevering. But I have to learn that every plant's not going to do what I want it to do. Every person's not going to do what I want them to do. I often don't do what I want me to do and what I would like to do. Last year, we decided we would try to grow some zucchini, and I was so excited about having fresh zucchini from the garden. So we got these pretty nice looking zucchini plants, and we planted them, and boy, they took off. They were thriving, and they had bloom after bloom after bloom after bloom, and never had a zucchini. Because what I didn't know was that there are sexes to zucchini plants, and you have to have male and you have to have female plants in order to get the cross pollination going on so that you can get a zucchini. We have beautiful plants. They were blooming their little plants off. They were just blooming profusely, and they had beautiful flowers, but we never got one zucchini because I didn't understand. So I got pretty impatient with them. We didn't try zucchini again this year. But now that I know, I learned something from that heartbreak over the zucchini that we didn't get. And there's some things that we can learn in this season. But the one thing I have learned is that every plant grows on its timetable. It's my job to provide the right conditions for them and continually give them the best I know how to do and keep them from harm. But they grow on their timetable. And even when you read those little tags at the nursery, some say it's a fast grower, some say it's a slow grower. And boy, is that true on some of them. They grow so slowly. We just we found a great deal on a little bitty Japanese maple, and I mean little bitty. It's pretty small, and we know it's going to take a long time for it to grow. We're not going to have this big, beautiful, spreading Japanese maple in our garden anytime soon, but we can still enjoy it for what it is right now. And but we know that we're going to have some patience. If we go into something like that, going, okay, this is going to require patience, it helps so much. When we have super high expectations, if I had the expectations that this was going to be a big, full Japanese maple next year, all I'm doing is setting myself up for disappointment. But okay, this is something that's going to take a while. Let me adjust to that and develop that patience to wait for it and the perseverance to not give up. Just keep doing the best, keep doing the best, keep doing the best. One of my favorite stories is about the Chinese bamboo tree. Now, I've never grown a Chinese bamboo tree, but I've heard a lot about them because a Chinese bamboo tree takes 5 years to develop its infrastructure of roots under the soil. before it ever starts growing. I mean, can you just imagine, if you started a Chinese bamboo tree farm, and you planted the seeds and you're watering, and your neighbor's like, "Hey, what you doing, buddy? Hey, I'm starting a Chinese bamboo tree farm." Right? And then the next year, you're still watering dirt. And he's like, "Oh, how's that Chinese bamboo farm?" She's, "Oh, it's going great, going great. I'm just watering it." And then a couple of years later, you can just imagine how silly you might look to other people that didn't understand a Chinese bamboo tree. But what happens is after 5 years of going through all the seasons and the cycles and being tended to, that Chinese bamboo tree will start growing. And when it starts growing, it can grow over 80 feet in just a few weeks. It's almost like you can watch it grow. Every day you can measure its growth because it grows that much, but it takes that long to get that root system started. And it requires a lot of patience on the part of the gardener, whoever's tending it. And, I think in my life, I look back and some people are just like that. I think in a lot of ways I've been like that. I look back at some of those stories of people who achieved their greatest things and did their greatest work later in life. And there's a lot of them. If you look them up, there's an amazing amount of those. Sometimes it just takes a while. I heard one of my mentors say the other day on a call that, many, many, many people have achieved their greatest life's accomplishments and work in their 40s and 50s. And that encouraged me. I thought, hey, wow, woohoo, there's still hope, right? And that's just the way it is. Some things we look for, we want all that outward growth immediately. But a lot of times, a plant that springs up quickly doesn't have a root that can sustain it. And when the difficulty comes, plant withers. I would much rather be a plant, and I think you would too, that has a good root system. Even if it takes longer, even if we don't look as impressive on the outside to people who are onlooking, we're developing and we're growing. And sometimes, I think only God really understands that. That's my belief as a person of faith. Only He knows what's going on the inside. So that's why I never want to give up on anybody. They can be in the worst condition, making the worst decisions, but it's worth having patience and perseverance and helping them if we can, because I'm not on the judgment throne. That's not been given to me. It may be terrible today, but some people who have had some terrible stories have been through horrible things, and I've been certainly made a lot of decisions I wish I hadn't made, and believed things I wish I hadn't believed. I didn't see clearly, but a lot of that's turned around. But there's people with far worse stories who have seen the light, who have come clear, who have learned, who have grown, and then who turned around, and the latter part of their life was a huge blessing to a lot of people. They did a lot of good in various ways. So we need to have patience with ourselves and with others, because we can't always understand what's going on the inside, what's going on under the surface, just like those plants, just like the Chinese bamboo tree. Some of them take a long time to get that infrastructure before they ever start showing growth. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you a few tips here. So year after year, we can count, because we love perennials and they come back every year. But year after year, most of them get better. The garden gets better, and the plants get stronger and bigger. And just remember, if you're in a down season, if you don't feel like you're making any progress, if you don't like where you are, just remember that things take time. Those Chinese bamboo trees take time, but they need to keep being watered and tended to, because one day they're going to start showing growth, and it's going to be evident to everybody. You'll see this just in a few weeks, where there was just a dirt field before. In a month, you'll see a bamboo tree forest that's like towering over 80 feet tall. That's like 8 stories. That's incredible, the amount that they can grow. And so just wait. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on anybody else. Giant sequoias don't get that way overnight. They come from this teeny little seed that you could just hold on the tip of your finger. But over several thousand years of continued growth, they become these majestic giants that people travel from all over the world to see. Right? So don't give up. And then the other thing is, find out